Welcome to Screenwriters Rewatch. We are continuing our journey through IMDb's top 250 film list. And in this episode, Peter Salisbury and I are talking about the 1954 film, the Hitchcock thriller Rear Window. We've a full length discussion over on our podcast where Peter and I will decide whether or not it deserves a place in film history and in the script department vaults, which are buried deep under the flower beds of the West 9th Street apartments. Welcome back to Screenwriters Rewatch, Peter. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, it's great to be here.
So tell me, why Rear Window?
Why Rear Window? Well, I first saw Rear Window years ago, sitting around the TV with my mum and dad and my two brothers, and I was completely blown away by it at the time. I thought it was something that was just so different from anything I'd seen before. There were none of those big conflicts between the characters you expect in a thriller. There were none of the car chases and the gory murders that we usually see. And it was just this one guy stuck in his apartment, looking out of his window, watching his neighbors. And I thought the film had a really powerful sense of place, the noisy, busy atmosphere of New York, and it's filled with music as well. So you got the people going on with their everyday lives, and it just totally fascinated me when I was quite an older teenager, I guess. And it's stuck with me ever since in a way that not many older movies have done or did at the time. And when we decided we were going to talk about Rear Window here, it meant that I was going to be going down memory lane and rewatching a movie that had left an enormous impression upon me at the time. And I was a little bit nervous. Would I be looking back on a magical movie night with my family and end up trashing the film? Would it still hold up after all these years? And yeah, I think it does.
Yeah, this is the first time I've watched it. It's been on my watch list for a long time, and I'm really glad to have finally found an excuse to sit down and watch it. There's just something really quite suspenseful about it. This permission to be a voyeur, if you like.
Yeah, but it's also it's thrown back at you, isn't it? It's like it's yeah, you are a voyeur, but it's almost like it's like you're in the cinema watching somebody in a cinema watching somebody else in a cinema. It's really weird. It's this strange sort of thing going on. And yeah, you're a voyeur on one hand, but also, and I wonder if it's also a comment on going to the cinema as a member of the audience, and maybe even a comment on Hitchcock as a filmmaker. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. The way you describe it there, you kind of automatically you think of things like Gogglebox or the way that we use social media nowadays. And so I really do feel that this will be quite a timeless film that younger generations will be able to enjoy for a long time yet.
I think Rear Window is a film about looking. It's about the protagonist, Jeff, who is looking out of his apartment window. And what he sees, it appears to be random. There are different neighbors engaged in various unrelated activities. And what he makes out of these activities makes up the film's narrative. And it's because he's confined to one room that it really pulls you in. You are in the room with him, feeling the same sense of entrapment. Jeff is trapped in a wheelchair. We're trapped as well. We're trapped inside his point of view, inside his lack of freedom. And as he passes the days and nights, really shamelessly watching his neighbors' private lives through the lens of his camera, we begin to share his obsession, and we begin to question our own voyeuristic fascination with others. So what he sees, we see, the conclusions he draws, we draw, and it's all without dialogue. That's the amazing thing. There are two main characters, Jeff and Lisa. Jeff is a photographer. He's in love with photography. He's completely absorbed in reconstructing images as he sees them through his lens. But he's broken his leg. He's confined to a wheelchair. He's bored out of his mind. So he starts spying on his neighbors with his camera and his lens. and he starts to invent stories about their lives. Excuse me. And I think the intimate setting of the courtyard fuels his overactive imagination, and we, as an audience, we become one with him as he leaps from one conclusion to another, as he observes the lives of others unseen at a distance from the safety of the inside of his apartment. And his girlfriend is very different. They're almost like a mismatched couple in a way. His girlfriend, Lisa Fremont, is a glamorous woman with a Madison Avenue lifestyle. And she's mad about Jeff, but she's frustrated with his lack of commitment to their relationship. But she doesn't back down easily. She's a strong character, and she's prepared to go out on a limb for him, if you pardon the pun, to show the dangerous side of her character. So Lisa and Jeff, they appear to be a mismatched couple. They aspire to slightly different lifestyles. Lisa wears exquisite clothes in this apartment, slightly dingy apartment, and that sets up a visual contrast that reinforces the difference between the two characters. So you've got Jeff in his baggy pajamas and Lisa in her Madison Avenue dresses. And I also think they have slightly different attitudes to the world. Jeff's is a little more unhealthy. He doesn't express his feelings, and he has this morbid curiosity with the outside world, while Lisa has a more healthier attitude. She embraces life, she shares her feelings, and she's full of excitement. She's full of excitement about the world, and she just wants to tell stories about her work life. So the film is made up of two interlocking elements. We have the main protagonist, Jeff, around which the plot's narrative, the murder mystery, gradually unfolds. And then we have the apartment block, in which we have this panoramic view of neighborhood life. And it's playing out on screen like a montage of lots of mini movie screens all happening at once. It's a neighborhood of different characters all acting out their lives within their own apartments. And Jeff's rear window shares a courtyard with all these other windows. So as the days pass, Jeff becomes familiar with all the other tenants in the apartment block. And it's a great number of characters, different characters, but they all represent, I think, they all represent different aspects of Jeff in some way, and his understanding of relationships, maybe. So we have this lonely heart. She throws dinner parties for imaginary gentlemen callers. And she is initially an object of fun before Jeff learns to question his first impressions of people. Then there's Miss Torso, who throws drinks parties for several men at a time. Again, Jeff, he objectifies her, and in that respect as well. And then we have a middle-aged couple who sleep outside on their balcony. The nights are so hot, so they sleep outside on their balcony. And then one night they frantically try to save their mattress when it starts to rain. That's a great image. There's a composer whose songwriting fills the courtyard with music, and that music provides a soundtrack for the film as well. There's a newlywed couple who pull down their blinds in their new apartment. And then, of course, there's Thorvald. He's a man with a wife who spends all day in bed, and she makes his life miserable. So we watch these characters in a variety of mundane activities. They're laughing, talking, crying, arguing, exercising, even gardening. And many of them never interact with Jeff, except as objects for him to observe. So we watch their lives unfold through this montage of apartment windows, and they're all lined up, like I say, like mini movie screens. And we, like Jeff, become curiously engaged with their lives. And Jeff starts looking through the window with his naked eye, and then a few minutes in, he uses his binoculars, and then finally he moves on and starts looking, observing through his camera, through a telephoto lens. So as he becomes more obsessed with the private lives playing out in front of him, his method of observing increases as well. There's one character, another character, Stella, his nurse, who joins him, and she is the voice of reason, or at least she is at the beginning. She sees her patient, Jeff. He's glued to the window in the opening scenes, and she complains, "We've become a nation of peeping Toms." Yeah, but eventually, too, she becomes just as transfixed with these private lives as he is as well. But what I find really unique about the film is that the murder scene happens out of sight with the blinds down. There is none of the in-your-face killing. There's no gory blood on screen. We don't actually see the act of murder. So the murder is presented in such a way that we're not actually sure if a crime has been committed. I think Hitchcock is really clever here. What he's doing with he's playing with us. He's teasing us a little bit. So Jeff, is it his over imagination, his overactive imagination? Is he just overreacting to what he sees, to a series of consequences? And if you compare the murder in Rear Window to the killing in Psycho, for example, where we see this aggressive act of murder in which Marion Crane is stabbed on screen in the shower, it's terrifying. But the murder in Rear Window is just as horrible. It's just that it happens behind closed windows, closed curtains. And it's through the power of suggestion, it taps into our emotions in a completely different way. Hitchcock plays upon our anxiety. He draws upon this and really tweaks it and twists it. He's playing upon our anxiety of what might be happening instead of showing us what is actually happening. So as Jeff, along with us through his point of view, observes Thorvald moving in and out of his apartment with the suitcase of what is presumed to be evidence, we're left to conclude with what it contains. Does it contain the remains of Thorwald's wife or not? And I think there's another scene, there's a scene later on, it's really one of the most suspenseful scenes for me. And it's when Lisa goes into Thorvald's apartment while he's out, and Jeff is completely powerless to intervene as he watches. You can see the anxiety increasing, and he whispers, "Get out of there." And he knows the murderer is going to return at any moment, and he watches as Thorvald returns. We see the danger approaching, yet we and Jeff, we cannot move. We can't raise the alarm. So in many ways, the film serves, I think it serves Jeff's emotional journey in the narrative. And as he moves from being this detached observer to someone who is compelled into realizing that there are real people behind every story, he's forced into changing his attitude about his feelings and his responsibilities to other people. So the film works on two levels, in two ways. There are almost two films going on here. There's the thriller, a really gripping thriller, and then there's this love story between a couple who are slightly at odds with each other. So Rear Window, it's more than just a thriller. It's a film that seems to raise more questions than it answers, partly about our own responsibilities towards other people and what makes us question our own voyeuristic tendencies. And I think it's a film that works on so many levels. It's a film about looking, it's about voyeurism, it's a love story, and it's a thoroughly gripping thriller.
It completely agree with all of your points, and I am just desperate to get over to the podcast so we can have this discussion and thrash out some of your observations. So if you would like to join us, then do come and search for us, the Script Department, wherever you get your podcast. There should be a link in the description below the video, and we'll see you there shortly.